Good evening. At this time, I'll call the meeting of the WISD Board of Trustees to order. Please let the record show that all 7 trustees are in attendance, that the meeting has been duly called, and notice of this meeting has been duly posted for time and required by law. At this time, I'll ask Mr. McCutcheon to lead us in our invocation, followed by Ms. Kriegel in our pledges.
Would you guys bow with me as we pray? Lord, we want to thank you for this district. I want you to please be with the teachers and the staff and the students as we embark upon a new school year soon. Please be with the board tonight. We're going to make a lot of important decisions regarding the most precious asset of this district, and that's the students and everybody that works at these campuses. Please guide us, keep your hand on us, and help us to make wise decisions. We ask all these things in your Son's holy name. Amen. Amen.
Next item on our agenda will be recognitions. Is that you, Ms. Bridges?
Yes, sir. Good evening, board. I am so excited to recognize 2 people this evening. These 2 educators have worked so hard to secure funding for innovative projects on their campuses. Scott Warren of Global High School runs the robotics team, and the DART Foundation has been very kind in years past to support the robotics team with small grants, but this year Mr. Warren applied for one of the foundation's larger grants to support Global's robotics and computer integrated manufacturing classes. And this year he received a $100,000 grant for Global High School. In addition, Melissa Abity received a $38,000 grant, also from the DART Foundation, on behalf of Wildman STEAM Academy. These funds will be used to purchase all materials and supplies for 3 makerspace areas throughout the campus. There will be a robotics, engineering, and coding room, a tinker studio, and a design den. All of these spaces will be used by students in grades K through 5. The DART Foundation is a private family foundation that was established by DART Container Corporation founder William A. Dart and his wife Claire T. Dart. The foundation supports projects that enhance education, especially in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math, and those that improve the quality of life in specific communities. Please join me in recognizing these amazing educators for going above and beyond for their students, and also we want to thank the DART Foundation.
Come up here, Mr. Warren. Oh, I got to take a picture.
And thank you, board.
Okay, at this time, the open forum part of our agenda, I believe we have one person signed up to speak. Mr. Micah Fletcher, would you please step forward and state your name and address for the record, please? You have
Fletcher, 1603 Little Creek.
You will have 5 minutes to speak. I will let you know when you get to 1 minute remaining.
Yes, sir. I'm standing before you tonight because my youth minister would say it's not a matter of who's right, but a matter of who's wrong. It's a matter of what's right and what's wrong. First, I want to begin by taking a moment to publicly thank 5 of you school board members, you know who you are, who stood behind me to meet with me and sat face-to-face with me to better understand the conflicts and problems that myself and others have faced in the current WISD administration over the past 2 years. I thank you for your dedication to the students, teachers, and to this community. As most of you are aware, I've obtained employment in another school district. The decision was not easy but necessary since the current administration did not offer me a contract in a timely manner. Details about this can be referred to the email that I sent each of you on June 29th. District upon up administration would tell you that I am here as a disgruntled and angry employee. I am not. I have an athletic director recording a conversation with me about former coaches. That is not true. I'm simply here as a taxpayer citizen of this community, a parent of students within the district, and a certified teacher and a coach who has great concerns and firsthand experience about the problems within WISD. Secondly, I want to address the lies and misconceptions that the current school administration has put on the district employees, students, community members. For example, the 3% raise given to teachers is not really a raise at all because it only helps cover the rise of health care insurance. Finding and maintaining subs is a problem because the district's pay rate is 10 years behind other surrounding districts. Also, support services have been not given a significant raise until recently, and I've been told personally that support services employees would have spoken about this sooner if the issue but fear of retaliation if they did so. I can relate to that. Head coaching HR choosing which jobs to post within the district. The inconsistent wording of job descriptions or job requirements leaves the appearance of deception by HR. For example, I applied for a non-coaching job, as I was told to, in the history department in the high school. And I was told by HR and by a high school principal at that time, who was told by an athletic director that all history teaching jobs were for coaches only. I have an email in May as proof of this. I have since discovered that this is not true, and there are social studies jobs that were given to individuals who are not coaches, but has close ties to the HR department. In my opinion, another example of this is the overpriced, over-budget new high school that doesn't have any more functional capacity than the previous high school does now, not to mention the many mistakes and flaws that I've seen in the new school. Thirdly, current and upper administration will tell you I do not know anything about managing people or budgets. However, the United States government gives me a command over 126 personnel and an $8.7 million property book. And previous school districts have given me multiple authorities to order supplies and equipment for students without hesitation. The current superintendent has come to WISD with a surplus of funds in the millions and currently will be leaving the district in a debt of multi-millions. This is a scenario, if that scenario took place in the military, the leader would be relieved of command and court-martialed, or in a corporate world would have million-dollar lawsuits and countless audits and investigations into the practices. Questionable practices, extremely of this reason, is that why I'm asking you board members to vote on in favor of forensic audit and bonds and accept the superintendent's resignation tonight. I personally know that projects were based on hold for certain campuses in order to complete work projects on other campuses. Questionable financial practices reach far beyond the new high school, like coaching salaries, both for certified and non-certified teachers, stipends, and campus-specific funds used to cover other campus purchases, which I have documentation of, and I'm sure this is only the tip of the iceberg. In closing, I know I'm putting myself, my wife's job, and my kids on the athletic endeavors jeopardy speaking about this tonight. I know I'm putting myself out there publicly to honor the word that I stand for, which is for white. I challenge each of you board members that if I'm wrong on anything tonight, to call me out on it. But I believe I'm not, which I believe so. I'm not, which I believe, and there are some serious potential legal positions and problems within this district. I cannot be a coach or leader that expected me and when my students and my athletes practice what I teach to my students and athletes, which is to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do each and every time. To summarize my dealings with this current administration, as well as other current and past employee dealings with this administration, I leave with this quote: when enough people make false promises, words stop meaning something. When there's no more answers, just more and more lies. Thank you.
Mr. Fletcher, there were numerous inconsistencies with your comments. You're always welcome to come by my office, and I'll help clear them up for you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Okay, at this time, we will move to the open public hearing part of our agenda. At this time, how many people do we have signed up to speak? We have 4 speakers signed up. I'm going to set a time limit of 5 minutes per speaker. At that time, any one of the board members can respond. You can ask questions. We'll respond appropriately and how we can. but it has to maintain specifically to our security and what, and that's all it can be is about security tonight. Who is our first speaker? Mr. Fletcher. Okay, Mr. Fletcher, please step forward. State your name and address for the record again, please.
Yes, sir. Michael Fletcher, 1603 Little Creek, Waxahachie, Texas. I'm as a parent and trained military commander, the security of this district is a great concern for me. Walking around the new high school and many other secondary campuses, I can't speak on elementary campuses because I don't go on them very often. But the lack of ECPs, which are what we call in military, entry control points, and credible ACPs, which we also call accessible control points, to give you an example, is the keypad on doors for your ID badge, should be an immediate concern. If there is an active shooter on many secondary campuses, me walking the halls every day, especially at Finley and the high school and 9th grade center, campuses I visit regularly, it is hard to imagine if there's an intruder, an inside threat, or an outside threat inside, it would be very plausible and without regret multiple casualties because of for the rescue workers and the students and bodies inside that. It is very hard to get a 3-man, 4-man stack security-wise against the door, plus all the doors open outwardly. In doing so, they can be easily accessed through windows and all the doors. And you need to see a campus or go through the district needs to look for multiple free advisories. For example, the ALICE program, or I Love You Guys, or the Secret Service programs all offer free services to school districts for safety procedures. We don't need to go outside and look for current or outside connections with security problems. There are multiple resources out there. I request that the board members seek an outside consulting company and then present that to the teachers first and concerns, and go poll them and see what their safety concerns are before you ask somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher.
Ms. Bowen.
Ms. Bowen, please step forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Visha Bowen at 107 Blue Moon, Waxahachie. We are currently having the Garden Valley Apartments being built across the street from Felty Elementary. The community we don't have a homeowners association, but the community has just now come together and we've created a little group just on some safety concerns that we've noticed. That street only having one way in and out, if there's an emergency that was to happen with the apartments coming up, we don't know how that's gonna affect emergency responders getting in. We have met with the city of Waxahachie, just trying to figure out what their role is in it. They've directed me to come here, of course, so that's why I'm here, figuring out how are we gonna make that safe if already when we have things going on with the school, that street is closed off, it's backed up. People were parking where they're building the apartments. We're not gonna be able to do that anymore. So obviously they're gonna be on the streets. So if something happens, we don't know how we're gonna get in and out. There's only one way. Also, we were wanting to find out if there's a way to extend the bus route for the walkers to alleviate some of that traffic with the apartments coming in and out and all that traffic coming in there. And we also asked if there's a way to open up on the back side of Felty, there's a playground, like a baseball little area. If there's a way we can create some kind of parking for emergency responders to open up a back way to get in that way, if there was an emergency to happen. So that's the concerns and trying to find out what we need to do to help with Waxahachie ISD, hopefully alleviating some of that concern of the families and the residents all there. And that was it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who do we have next, Ms. Bridges?
Ms. Hill.
Ms. Deal?
Hill.
Hill, I'm sorry. Ms. Hill, please step forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Loretta Hill, 1395 East High. My name is Loretta Hill. I'm a parent of two children in Waxahachie ISD. I'm a law enforcement professional with over 24 years experience. The majority of my law enforcement experience is at executive levels. I've worked in 2 major cities, currently serve as the chief of police in the College Systems Police Department here locally. I have over 1,000 hours of training, planned major events, secured major venues, schools, you name it. I only give you my background, not as a resume, but to demonstrate my level of knowledge and expertise in the field of law enforcement. Law enforcement is not a job for me, it's my calling, it's my passion. It's my chosen profession, it's what God told me to do, is to be a law enforcement professional. So when I talk about law enforcement, I have some concerns about our overall security planning. And I have spoke with superintendent, has been very open. I've talked to him. I've sent letters to the board members to discuss some of the issues that I have with some of the plans. And all of them, they have to be multifaceted and multi-layered. And the first part of any plan is doing an audit. What is going on at our schools now? Surveys, I know a survey did come out eventually to find out what the parents wanted, but has anybody done a physical security survey of what our issues are at the school? And if we have, I would love to see it. I would love to comment on it. Because that's where you start with a security plan, is what are your needs? What are the teachers' needs? What are the parents' needs? What are the faculty and staff needs? And I think that's something we have to do. One of my major concerns about the plan that we've been discussing, that's been discussed, is the guardianship part of that plan. The guardian plan, as it currently states, is a plan that gives school districts the right to arm certain people within those school districts. I have large concerns about that. I have thousands and thousands of hours of training. I have muscle memory. I run to gunfire because it's innate. It's who I am. Normal people don't do that. 40 hours of training, 80 hours of training are not going to make a teacher do that. And I don't want them to do that. I want them to protect my child. My 2 kids are in elementary. They signed up to teach. They didn't sign up to do my job. They didn't sign up to be security people. We have to come up with something different that truly protects our students. And the guardianship plan is not going to do that. I appreciate all the teachers that have chosen the profession of teaching. And they should stay in the profession of teaching and leave security and law enforcement to the professionals that do it every day. Because it has to be a muscle memory reaction till you hear guns. We have had over 290 school shootings in this country in the last 20 years. The next closest civilized country is almost in single digits. The answer is not more guns. The answer is safe and secure methods of entry, IDs, cameras, and people that do security full time. Not a math teacher that's teaching math and all of a sudden something happens and they have to think about security. We need people 24 hours a day that think about security, or however long our babies are at those schools. And I say babies because mine are in elementary, a kindergartner and a 5th grader. And I want them safe. I have given my life for kids to be safe. I protect everybody's kids. I want you to protect mine, because I go out every day and protect everybody else's. And I want mine to be protected. And I want Waxahachie ISD to make the right decisions when it comes to safety and security. And the guardianship plan should not be on that list. So my other issues with the guardianship plan is just not defined. The Marshall Plan is defined. At least T-Code gives you some ruling. T-Code is our licensing authority, for teachers. Thank you, sir. It's our licensing authority. So it gives us at least a guideline on who should be trained, how often they should be trained. At least that one's more structured, not the guardianship plan. So I leave with this, and I'm touching something. I'm gonna move over. I want all our kids to be safe at school. I don't think the guardianship plan will do that. I have told all the board members, and I will say again to you today, I'm available, because I'm here as a parent. I give you my background so you'll know that I know what I'm talking about. But I'm here as a parent, so I'm here to help solve the problem, not be part of the discussion, and not have action. Ask the school teachers. I volunteer. I go on every trip that I can get on because I'm that parent that's involved. So I offer my assistance to you, each and every person here, but I urge you, as you look at and contemplate the complexities of security, the guardianship plan is not the road for Waxahachie ISD. We need professionals to do this job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Malone.
Ms. Malone, please step forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Rachel Malone. My address is 11709 New Sweden Church Road, Manor 78653. May I pass out some written testimony as well?
Sure.
Great. It's collated into stacks. Sorry, it's not stapled. All right, so I'm Texas Director for Gun Owners of America, so obviously I don't live here, but I'm representing people who do live here. And so I just wanted to walk you through a few points that are important to our members. One, which I'm positive you already know, Just as a reminder, school boards do have the authority to decide who may lawfully carry inside of school buildings. So, did I just accidentally? No, I didn't. So Texas Penal Code 46.03 prohibits weapons inside the premises, which is inside the school buildings, but then turns right around and says, unless pursuant to written regulations or written authorization of the institution. So that's the exception. So you can literally decide, you know, everybody whose name starts with A can carry, or everybody, right? A silly example, but you get to decide. The state has also set forward a couple of programs to give you some parameters if you don't want to come up with your own specific concepts, where you can pick some of those, kind of like you can have a buffet or you can order from the restaurant, right? So you can pick the Guardian program, which has already been referenced, which is basically just a way of saying, okay, we have some citizens who carry an everyday life around all of these same kids in our community. That's their choice. They've chosen to have their own firearms, have their own training. We're going to send them to this additional training to hear some things that are of concerns, and get a little better trained specifically for a situation they might encounter in a school. They're not expected to be law enforcement. They're not expected to run towards gunfire. They're simply able to have that firearm on the premises inside the building with them, just the same way that all of us would at Walmart or at HEB, or shopping or at the park with our kids. So if an attacker comes in, they're able to use that. And the other one is a school marshal program, which really does create a separate class of law enforcement. If you're interested in that, I can discuss some of the reasons why I think it's a flawed program. Not what I'm recommending, just because of it kind of turns civilians into law enforcement, but not really, and it has a lot of strict requirements, which I don't think makes sense. So if you have questions, happy to address those. The bottom line is you do have the authority to do that and to make those decisions. Second, people are statistically much safer in places where firearms may be lawfully carried by peaceful, law-abiding citizens. The statistics on that show from 1950 through April 30th, 2018, mass public shootings in gun-free zones, 97.3% of those mass shootings were in supposedly gun-free zones, places where guns were not allowed to be had. Obviously, that didn't matter to the criminals. They want to do violence anyway. They're going to break that law. What it meant is those who might have been able to have a fighting chance at saving their lives were not able to have that tool. And so just statistically, and I put that there, and I put the definitions of the mass public shootings. It comes from the FBI report. It's not made up by somebody else. That citizens are that much safer. And yeah, you can definitely harden schools through other means. Metal detectors have been talked about in some districts. I know, I don't know if what you guys are discussing here. I have personally actually gone through metal detectors wearing a firearm, been wanded down, and then had law enforcement, very highly trained, respected law enforcement say, oh, you weren't carrying a gun, why did you do that? I'm going to specify I was actually legal to carry. I had my license. I was just, I had to go through the metal detector. That was the only entry point. Wanded down and said, oh, she didn't have a gun on. There are ways that can be bypassed. So again, yeah, harden the schools, look at the classroom layout set up to do all those things, but then let's recognize also that evil will always exist in this world. There will still be the bad guys who come in, people intent on evil. If they can't get into the school, maybe outside of the school before the metal detector. So metal detector is not an end-all. Other means of hardening schools, they can be fantastic. They're not the end-all to safety. Civilians carrying guns are a viable and efficient method of hardening schools and of actually making our kids safer. And I put some statistics there for you of how active shooters are stopped and law enforcement reports. Law enforcement consistently says the way to mitigate harm from a mass shooting is to have more guns on scene faster. Those guns don't necessarily have to be law enforcement, obviously in the hands of a good guy, but in the hands of those who choose to carry in everyday life as a fighting means of protecting their own lives. Over 200 out of the over 1,000 school districts in Texas have chosen to allow some form of civilians carrying as a method of hardening their schools, and that number is growing. There are, again, those people are not law enforcement, don't replace it, but give themselves a fighting chance. Last night I watched a video from a teacher who was at Santa Fe, and the quote I remember is, he really wished he'd had his 45. Thank you.
Thank you. One more?
That was 4.
That was 4.
Just real quick, I just wanted to bring to the hearing a couple of things. I did have some of our security staff talk about item number 5 on the 15-point security proposal, rotating elementary and junior high security officers. I told them that I would bring it to the trustees' attention, that they felt like they could build better personal and relationships with students, staff, and better knowledge of the building and facility itself, and therefore be able to better protect the facility if we did not rotate elementary and junior high security guards. We let them in place similar to the way we do our high school security. So I did want to bring that up. I believe they went to a marshal training and actually saw some research from the presenter that said that it would be more effective to leave them in place rather than rotating them from campus to campus. So that's one item for the trustees to consider. And because we have so many of our security officers in our audience tonight, if it's the board's pleasure, certainly would like to welcome any of them up to the podium to speak if they feel it on their heart to share something. I know that just about all of them were trained as school marshals last week by T. Cole. So if you would like to speak, certainly want to give you the opportunity as employees of the district.
Or anybody else that didn't sign up before we close the public hearing. Yes, sir. Please step forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Sir, my name is Lee Milano. I work for the Texas Department of Public Safety. Assigned here in Waxahachie.
Can you give me your address, please?
I'm sorry, sir.
Your address, please.
The address is 1720 East Main Street here in Waxahachie. I came here tonight just to make the public aware, make teachers aware and the students aware that the department has partnered with the governor's office and came up with the mobile app iWatch. It is it's an application that you can download on your cell phones. Everyone knows here, and I'm sure that you all will agree, that our biggest assets are our kids. And so one way of preventing active shooters is to intervention, and one way to do that is to get on iWatch mobile app and report any suspicious activity. The information that you put into this iWatch app gets sent to Austin in a central location, and it's disseminated to local agencies from where the actual report is made. And so I just wanted to bring awareness to the public that that app is available on iPhone or Apple phone or any other mobile device. And also to make you guys aware that DPS is taking an active role in security for the schools. We will probably, here in the near future, you guys will probably be seeing black and whites parked outside of schools just to do a walkthrough and to make the public aware that there's no reason for alarm. If you see a highway patrolman parked outside the front of the schools, it's no alarm. It's just there to, it's a deterrence more than anything else. But we are planning and creating SOP now for officers to make their ways around schools and interact with the teachers and try to become more familiar on a first name basis with the public.
Sergeant, is that a statewide initiative or something you adopted in Waxahachie?
No, sir, that is a statewide initiative. This is something that's being pushed not only from our headquarters, but we're partnered up with the governor's office as well. Obviously after the Santa Fe shooting, there's no bigger asset than the kids that our kids in our communities, and so we're taking an active role in trying to be more proactive and hopefully create some deterrence by visiting some of the schools by parking our black and whites outside.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it and all the DPS does for the district.
Thank you very
Sir,
much.
would you be the point of contact for the DPS here in town?
Our office is comprised of 3 sergeant areas. I am one of 3. If you'd like to put me down as a point of contact, I'd be more than happy to take any calls.
Well, I wanted to ask Melissa Cobb, one of our initiatives tonight is to partner with community members and law enforcement agencies. I didn't know if y'all had already got together or if we need to make that connection. I think that's part of her program, is to reach out and
yes, sir.
Develop a program with all the law enforcement agencies.
Right. Of course, we're working closely with our law enforcement partners, any community leaders, especially out in the rural areas. Waxahachie has a pretty large department here. We will obviously be working with them when and if we start visiting schools here this coming year. But more importantly, we want to reach out to the smaller school districts and the surrounding in the county in rural areas. So yes, if anyone would like to make a phone call, I'll be more than happy to answer their calls and answer any questions they might have.
Mr. Rogers, we can have Ms. Cobb make that connection.
Yeah, I didn't know, are we going to go through each 15 one by one, or?
If you want to go through each 15 one by one right now, we can.
If anyone else wants to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also in attendance tonight, we have Sheriff Edge. Where are you at, Sheriff Edge? Somewhere. There he is. And we also have our Assistant Police Chief Siegler. There he is. Would you two guys come forward? Will you two guys come forward? I just want to recognize you guys. And I want to let members of the public know that this is not the first time that we've started discussing security. These two departments have been on the forefront of all the plans and ideas that we've come up with. And again, tonight's not the first night we started talking about this. I believe it was a month and a half ago minimum. And we've listened to what these guys have said. It was great to hear from DPS tonight. We've listened to public comments. If there's anybody else that wants to say anything before we start discussing this, I welcome them now. Do you guys have anything you want to add?
I think it's been covered.
Okay.
Previous meetings and in this one.
Okay, but just to let the public know, we have been vigilant in working through this process.
And we do appreciate the support of both the Waxahachie PD and the Sheriff's Office. They've been more than accommodating for the district.
Chief
Thank you,
Sigler,
guys.
do we have any opportunities for volunteers on our safety committee, citizen-wise? I was just thinking about Ms. Hill and all her expertise. I didn't know if we had opportunities or not to volunteer on that committee.
That would be a school staff question there. I mean, we don't put the committee together. That's sponsored by, put together by you guys.
Right.
It's not uncommon for us, Mr. Rogers, to add parents to committees, and we could certainly contemplate adding a concerned parent or a parent that has specific expertise really to any committee, including this. Many times our committees will receive information that's confidential or something that's not to be shared, and so we could formulate essentially a policy procedure to allow them to have information, share information, but also agree that there's some information that couldn't be publicly shared.
And Mr. Rogers, we will be discussing the formal security in closed session tonight, but not to bore the public, but I'm going to read you guys the 15 points that we're going to be discussing tonight. Yes, sir. Is there someone in the back who wants to speak? Somebody raising their hand? Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to read the 15 points that we're considering. That way you guys will know all encompassing what we're going to be discussing. Number one is the implementation of a Marshall Plan and training for all security officers, which we've already taken the step to do that at our last meeting. Implementation of a Guardian Plan with training requirements at or above the level required to become a school marshal. Adding a second school resource officer. We've already approved that. That resource officer will be on campuses when school starts. Metal detector wands and mobile at every campus with random screenings throughout the day and extracurricular activities, and/or mobile stationary detectors at secondary campuses. Rotating elementary and junior high officers on a monthly basis, which that was addressed earlier. Adopting a discipline policy for students and staff who intentionally leave school facilities unsecure. Providing crisis counseling for students as needed, including working with our special education department to identify and provide services for students identified as violent mental health risks. Training staff on security, lockdown, and evacuation procedures utilizing the standard response protocol and standard reunification method approved by the state of Texas. Implementing the DIRS, often referred to as DIRS, Emergency Response Program, and provide staff on law enforcement training. Implementing a delayed evacuation or administrative directive to ensure pulled alarms are not false. Hire local law enforcement to work at all WISD campuses during the school day. This will be randomized and based on availability. Number 12, work with partners in education to train and partner with community members to provide visibility, volunteer, security specifically targeting required law enforcement and veterans through watchdogs or similar program. Implementing teen leadership programs at junior high campuses that work directly with district security and SROs. Implementation of programs to encourage first responders and law enforcement to be on campuses, i.e. workstations, free lunches, law enforcement information programs, breakfast with police officers. And finally, explore programs or policies for improved parent notification during emergency events. For example, Remind 101 or School Messenger. All of those things will be considered tonight. That's just an example of what we've been working on over the last couple of months. So if there's no other one wants to speak at this time. You want to speak? Yes, ma'am. Step forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Sylvia Coulson, 1315 Dixie Lane. I just wanted to mention, as you're talking about security, a friend contacted me today and said that her son was at the high school campus and that she was not able to contact him by phone. I don't know if it's something, if there are plans to fix that, but I've had, and then several people, she actually had a Facebook post, and you know that goes viral, but she said there were several people commented that they've been trying to contact their children and they couldn't. So there's something going on with cell phone service at the school, and it's a concern. So I just wanted to share that with you and hope y'all can do whatever needs to happen so parents can contact children and so wives can contact husbands. And I would just also like to speak in support of the Guardian Plan. I think a good guy with a gun is a very effective means to prevent school shootings. And the good guy with the gun don't get all the press. It's the ones that are successful in shooting the children that get the press.
Thank you very much. Last call. Okay, at this time, I will close the public hearing, 7:36. Okay. Item number 5 on our consent agenda. Before I address the consent agenda, we do have a couple of typos on the consent agenda. Instead of A through H, it should, where it has items 6, 7, and 8, those all should be considered for a consent agenda item. So it'd be technically I, J, and K. We can take those individually. We can vote to approve them all at once, or if there's a specific item that someone would like to remove. Okay.
Could I get clarification on that?
Sure, and it's just one item, and I believe that's the security system, Mr. Calden?
Yes, sir. It's one contract for the alarm systems at the new high school facility.
Okay, so it's not total payment?
No, sir.
That's kind of misleading when I read that. So I know our punch list is not.
It was written in generic terms because we anticipated a second one that's not exactly ready for this board meeting, so it'll be held for a future meeting.
And that one is complete?
Yes, sir. This one is complete and ready for payment.
Any other questions or comments? At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. McCutcheon, second by Mr. Starnader. Is there any other questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay. It would be action items, budget and finance. Mr. Calden, 2018-2019 budget update.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last time we had our meeting on the 23rd of July, you all got a flash drive with specific budget information and a budget summary report. My question to you tonight is, are there any questions as you look through that? Or is there any additional information that you would like? Are there any budget priorities that you think need refocusing as we go into the presentation of the budget and its potential adoption on August 27th? Okay.
I guess there are no questions.
Thank you, sir. I will be doing the construction update. Would you rather me do it now or flip-flop with Ms. Blaylock?
Let's see, that would be under facilities and construction. No. What item is that one?
It'd be item C
C2.
under action
C2.
items.
Oh, there you are. Sure, go right ahead. We take
Okay.
it out of order, so you don't have to come up twice.
Thanks, sir. Last time we had our meeting, we did interviews with architects and construction manager at risk firms. The decision was made for the architect firm at the last meeting. At this point, it is the recommendation of the
district administration that we employ Buford Thompson as our construction manager at risk for the North Grove Elementary project.
Do you guys have any questions?
I personally am not comfortable voting on that yet. We have
Okay.
two more meetings this month. We had a lot going on this week. It's my intention to go look at a couple of those facilities, and we've had a busy week.
Okay.
And I can promise you that by the time we have our next meeting, that we will have a review, but I'm uncomfortable spending $20 million of public funds without going and double checking things.
Very good.
I kind of believe the same way. My question is, if we wait and vote on this in 2 weeks, I'm not anticipating that causing a major issue with
No,
timing or
sir.
anything.
It shouldn't.
Okay.
No, we're well ahead of schedule.
And we will have it done by then.
Okay, that's fine. We will.
Is the board okay with
We
that?
will pause
We don't have to
that
take
for a
any
later
action.
date.
I'm sorry?
We'll pause that one for a later date.
Yes,
We'll bring
sir.
it back on the
We'll
27th.
bring it back at our next meeting.
Yes, sir.
That'll give us some time to go and check out some facilities.
Will you?
Table that?
No, we don't have, you don't have to take any action, it's consideration action,
Okay,
possible action.
yeah.
Flip to here.
Are you doing item C2 as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Update on transition plan for Global, Coleman, and Wildman Steam.
As you know, it's been a really busy summer with multiple projects going on between the Hancock Building and Coleman Junior High and the Wildman Steam Academy, Turner Pre-K, and of course, the new high school and renovations to the former Billy Bates CTE area. So I have a little presentation. There we go. This is over at Coleman. So the old high school, Waxahachie High School sign was taken down off of 77. My understanding, it was struck by lightning some years ago and hasn't worked in quite a while. And so the concrete and rock formation was put up, and then the sign should be going in. My understanding was early part of this week, so it should be in the next couple of days. And then the sign on the right is out at the new high school site. That was put in today, and the programming has started on the sign at the new high school site. We also, over at Coleman and at certain spots, I believe at Finley, have been working on patching and filling some of the bus driveway lanes where there have been some pretty massive holes. And so this is just part of the concrete work that's going on in that bus loop. Coleman Junior High, you can also see some of the cleanup work that's happened within the hallways over at Coleman to prepare it for the students as it's transitioning from Waxahachie High School into Coleman Junior High. Also, a learning lab suite, new art room facilities that are going in. There was a greenhouse out beyond the walls of the CCE facility, and that greenhouse has been taken down and that land has been cleaned up. We're in the back renovating the old CTE area to become the the school of choice and the DAP program, in addition to some curriculum PD spaces and office spaces. This will be the new cafeteria area for the DAP area, and then a bathroom remodel in that same area. You see some more renovations for secretary and principal's offices. Over at Turner, we moved out the school of choice and DAP from, I guess that would be the easternmost side of the building, moving them over into the area at the former CTE area. And so we're expanding Turner to be full-day pre-K throughout the entire campus, and also to have the Little Chiefs Academy, or the daycare program, over there as well. Just some of the renovation work that was happening in the former Challenge Academy, School of Choice office area and classroom areas. Cleaning up some of the doors for departments that are no longer housed on those campuses. Kind of making it a little more kid-friendly for pre-Kers and for their parents as you walk into the building. And then over at Wildman, we've also made major headway this summer as we're going through the building, transforming it into STEAM Academy. This was in a black room, which was an engineering room, I believe, over when it was Global High School, and you can see its transformation into a second grade classroom. Principal's office reclaimed some classroom space, made a principal and counselor and an assistant principal and registrar suite or office suite. Kindergarten rooms used to be the science labs, and those renovations are coming along. We fully anticipate the Wildman renovations this week to make some major headway. If pressed on it today, we could have school. We could have classes in Wildman today. May not be the most optimum setting, but we could have classes today. Just more vision of what used to be the reception area is now going to be library and maker space, and the reception area has kind of been moved up a little bit into the front of the double staircase entry up there. Bathroom remodel, this is down in the kindergarten suite where the labs are. And our poor gym over at Wildman's kind of been used a lot this summer. It's been the sender and the receiver on both ends, and so you still see classroom furniture in there. The stuff on the right that you see with yellow tape around it, those are kindergarten furniture that are awaiting the finishing of those rooms. We've got them sorted out, ready to go, and then the stuff on the left-hand side of that picture, mainly looking at supplies ready for classroom delivery. At Global High, we've taken some rooms and we've put walls up and we've taken walls down to make them more functional for computer labs and some other rooms. We've also installed the fume vents that were over at the science labs on the Wildman campus have been moved over to the Hancock building so that those would be in a more usable fashion for Global High. And there you go. There's the end of that slide presentation. Again, as I was saying, today, if school were tomorrow, we could have school in these facilities. It may not be optimum, but one thing that Mr. Avenshine has kept saying through this whole process, we will be ready on day 1. It may be a little bit better on day 3 and a little bit better than that on day 10 and a little bit better than that on day 15. But we will have school environment ready for students because we know they're coming on the 22nd. So we will be ready. They will be here, and things will only get better as we keep going throughout the fall semester.
And truly a big kudos to our entire maintenance staff, Jacob Perry, Michael Craig, all the students we hired over the summer, all of our support staff. They've done an amazing job making this transformation happen for the district. And by no means do we think we'll be finished when school starts. They'll be working on projects probably through Christmas, and really even into next summer there are some larger projects that we're ready to tackle. But day 1, when the students arrive, we will be ready for them.
Yes, sir.
I have a comment and a question.
Yes, sir.
So I was at Wildman last week, and I saw some things that kind of disturbed me, particularly the lack of subcontractors that were there and how much work has to be done. Is there a penalty clause in their contract if they don't finish, or what can we do to stress the importance of getting those classrooms specifically I'm talking about some kindergarten classrooms?
So my understanding is when we wrote the contract, there's not a penalty clause. As we have been going through this project, through the transformation out there at Wildman, I will fully admit, I was super comfortable. My level of comfort has dipped in the last couple of weeks. So we have stayed on that contractor. We've been getting daily updates from him. He told us today that at 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, that facility is going to look ready to go. It's going to need a little bit more waxing, a little bit more polishing on the floors, but past that, the construction work will be done, the painting will be done. It will look like it's ready to go for class. All that to say, we have a scheduled walkthrough at 3:30 on Wednesday, and from there, we'll either have to continue that fire that's lit under the contractor at this point, or we'll have to start exploring other options to get somebody else in to come help him finish. When I walked through it today, the majority of things that needed to be done in those science labs, there's one room that needs a little bit more drywall put up, and then the mudding and taping and painting that goes with that. The majority of the work in the other 2 classrooms really is limited to the tile work on the floor, putting in the replacement tile, and doing the waxing and the final cleaning and the polishings as it goes in on that. So really, our main concern at this point is one classroom, and the majority of that was brought on by expansion of the restroom facilities outside of that classroom. And walking through it today, those restrooms look like they're going to be spot on. That's where contractors were spending most of their time today working. And like I say, we have assurances from the contractor that by Wednesday afternoon, they should be complete with the majority of that work.
Any major issues that need to be done at Coleman?
I know that there have been conversations between Mr. Perry and the Coleman staff about some things that they would like to see done. The last update that I had on that one was that we have addressed, at least started addressing all of their concerns. There are some of them that were scheduled for completion relatively quickly, and there were some others that we haven't made major headway on, but should not be major concerns that we will be able to get done before the start of school.
It's my understanding they got the bees out of Wyoming this weekend, right?
Yes, sir. We got the bees out of Wyoming we attempted the removal of the bees this weekend at Wyoming. We did have a major assist from our friends down at the city of Waxahachie, so we really appreciate their assistance on that. And yes, sir, went over today, didn't see any activity. I saw a lot of remnants of some activity on Saturday, so I believe for the time being we may have remedied the bee problem.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Calden.
Thank you, Mr. Calden.
Thank you.
All right, curriculum and academics. First review of dating, violence, bullying, cyberbullying, sexual harassment, and sexual violence protocol. Mr. Robinson.
Good evening, Board. During my SHAC presentation in July, I listed our teen dating violence policy as one of our SHAC action items. You have received this protocol for review. Up there, be fine. The purpose is to write a teen dating violence policy to meet the compliance of the Texas Education Code 37.0831, which mandates that each school district in Texas adopt and implement a dating violence policy. Texas Council on Family Violence worked with statewide groups to develop a model policy and collaborated with Texas Education Agency and the Texas Association of School Boards for an effective implementation of the law. I use these documents to develop and model our policy for Waxahachie ISD. The state says that a dating violence policy must include definitions of dating violence. It includes the intentional use of physical, sexual, verbal, or emotional abuse by a person to harm, threaten, intimidate, or control another person in a dating relationship as defined in the Family Code. It must also address a safety plan, enforcement of protective orders, school board alternatives to protective orders, training for teachers and administrators, counseling for affected students, and awareness education for students and parents. So in working on this policy, we quickly learned that the terminology that they were using in all of these written by the state was the same as our bullying and our cyberbullying policy that we had. So incorporating these policies all into one protocol, this allows for one guide for all of our administrators and our counselors to use. It's one place where everything is listed. This way, it also ensures that we have the same forms in place. The policy is all being followed, it's all aligned, everything is in there together. It also meets all of our state compliance guidelines, this policy does. It aligns the process so that we can make sure that the documentation is kept all in the same place and all on the same forms. You will see that all the required definitions are listed on page 3 and 4, with specifics to victim safety on pages 4 and 5. Training and presentations for teachers, administrators, students, and parents are listed on pages 5 and 6, and our school interventions are on pages 7 and 8. Pages 11 and 12 are flowcharts. The flowcharts are for campus administrators and counseling teams to follow. This is to ensure that all of the questions that are asked and no steps are missed each time that an alleged incident occurs. We also make sure that our action and support plan is in place to take care of every student that is involved. That includes the bully, the victim, and any bystanders or witnesses that may be there. This policy also, after that, those are the forms that have been created to keep all of the documentation in one place. After that, we also include the stay-away agreement, the notice of parent and student rights, and a list of community resources to help with any additional services that a family might be in need of. We use those family resources in our counseling department, and also our school nurses use those. There is also a student complaint form for reporting bullying, harassment, or violence. And the forms ask those forms, we just wanted to have those in there to make sure that they asked all the necessary questions if a student were to complain about being bullied or harassed. And finally, there is altercation response chart for administrators to use. The checklist will ensure that any necessary steps are taken when an incident has been brought to the administrator's attention. It's a checklist so that they can use it to make sure that they have not missed anything that the state is requiring for these. At this time, we'll take any questions on the policy at this time.
You'll bring this back for approval at our next board meeting, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, I have a
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry, we got one.
Just, how does it incorporate into our student code of conduct and handbook? How does this, pair with it? Is that I'm sorry if that's a dumb question, but.
There are
You see what I'm
specifics.
saying?
There are specifics to bullying that are included in David's Law. All of those are listed in there. It also does refer in the chart that they do use the code of conduct, so they will use it in conjunction with these.
That's what I need to know. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you.
Consideration of possible action to approve the student code of conduct and student handbook. I know there's lots of parents that have been waiting for this one.
Yes, sir. And I would like to thank Ms. Robinson for all of her work on our dating violence and bullying protocol. We were recently at a Region 10 training, and Ms. Robinson ended up being the trainer to some of the people in the room, and they were begging for our form. So I appreciate her work and organization. And we will be making sure that all of our campus administrators are, upon your approval, that they are implementing that for this school year. So if you have any concerns between now and the time of the next board meeting, please don't hesitate to let us know so we can make those changes for you. Tonight, we are on our final review of our handbook and district code of conduct for all students. We have updated number 6 on your safety plan, which is in regards to students and staff exposing the building to unsafe exterior doors. So that has been updated on page 76 of the handbook. So we can check that one off, that has been accomplished. The handbook also does update families on our charge policy that was approved recently by the board during the summertime. Did the board have any questions or concerns from the documents as they were presented to you in the past? It is on page 76 of the student handbook. And then when we meet with our assistant principals and principals, we'll be discussing appropriate consequences should that be broken. It is the 4th bullet point under safety. And then the charge policy is now on page 79.
Any questions from Ms. Blaylock?
As discussed in the workshop, we will request that our campus principals at both Global High School and Waxahachie High School put the policies regarding the student groups and different types of bylaws in their campus addendums, as we discussed in the workshop at 6.
Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to approve the 2018-2019 Student Code of Conduct and Student Handbook.
I make a motion to approve the 2018-2019 Student Handbook and Code of Conduct.
Motion by Mr. Starnader, a second by Mr. Schofield. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, board. And we will get those documents posted tomorrow morning. If you are sought out by parents needing to find that, it will be under the student section, Ms. Bridges, on the website, student section. Yes, sir. Yes, you're right.
Okay, at this time, we will convene into closed session according to section 551.01 et sec. It is now 7:59.